This is awesome. I have to say, I have been here. I attended the conference last year as an observer, and to be able to see and hear and listen to all the complexity that's happening and all the discussions that are happening is just really amazing. So thank you so much for having me and for inviting me. So before I talk, what I'm going to talk about is our open access policy. But before I do that, I think it's important for you to know who the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation is, or who we are. So we're about 15 years old. In 1994, Bill Gates Sr. was working in a small philanthropic foundation to give money away for Bill. Then in 2000, those entities, they kind of kept cropping up, and then they became under one roof in 2000. In 2006, we had another milestone. Warren Buffett gave us pledges his Berkshire Hathaway stock valued at $31 billion. And then in 2008, Bill joins Melinda full-time at the foundation. He left Microsoft to come to work full-time. And then in 2011, we moved into our new campus. And I don't know how many of you have been to Seattle, but if you are ever there next to the Space Needle, you should stop by and see me. I love taking visitors into the foundation. So that's an open, standing invitation. Okay, so this is our global reach and presence. You'll see that we have a variety of offices. Seattle is our main headquarters. We have an office in Washington, D.C., one in London, Nigeria, South Africa, Ethiopia, India, and China. We have a trust endowment of $42.9 billion. We paid out $3.9 billion in grant payments last year, and we only see that going up. We have over 1,500 active grants, and we have over 1,300 employees, and most of those employees are actually in Seattle. So I think it's also really important to know what we value at the foundation. And I love that two of the values that we have are actually behind me on the screen, innovation and collaboration. So when we think about how we do our work at the foundation, we do it with optimism. We know we can't do it alone. We know that we need partners. We know that we have to have intellectual dialogue. Some people call that constructive conflict or positive friction. Otherwise known as intellectual dialogue and rigor. And then innovation. The innovation piece, the value, enables us to take risks, to take big risks, and to make the big plays. So when you think about the values, what do we focus on? Well, we focus on where the areas of greatest need are and where we can have the greatest impact. And how do we do that? We do that with our programmatic work in global health, global development, United States programs, global policy and advocacy, and communications. Our global health program works with, is wanting to eradicate polio, have a vaccine for malaria. We work with TB and infectious disease. Our global development program concentrates on water sanitation and hygiene. We had a toilet fair at the Seattle campus a couple of years ago, and that was really fun to kind of see what new toilets could be invented. We also deal with financial services for the poor and agriculture. In the United States program, that's our education arm, and that's where the improving education in the U.S., that's that arm. And we also have Pacific Northwest programs in that program as well. Our GPA, Global Policy and Advocacy and Communications teams, they deal with public policy and bringing awareness to the issues that are important to us. So what is important to us? What do we want to do? You've heard where we're working and what we're doing, but I think it's important to have this set mindset. We want to improve education in the United States. We want to end extreme poverty. We want to save children's lives. We want to end hunger, and the next one. We want to eradicate polio, and we want to end hunger. So when we think about those things that we want to do, how do we do that? And everything that we think about strategy is all into that impact of how we are going to solve these problems. And so when we think about why open access, it's because sharing information accelerates our impact, right? We want the research to get out as fast as possible. We want all of our research to get out as fast as possible, not just the stuff that's published in journals. We want it all out there, the good, the bad, the negative, all of it. We want people to be able to build on it and reproduce it, and that will accelerate our impact. When we think about our open access policy, we started this process in November of 2013. We had formal internal discussions, and I was part of that working group along with Dick Wilder. And we conducted a lot of stakeholder interviews. We met with a lot of partners to develop a recommendation to send up to our executive leadership team. And in May of 2014, the executive leadership team approved the policy. And then in November of 2014, the open access policy was made public. So what is the policy? The policy has 5 elements. The publications must be discoverable and accessible online. They must be on open access terms with a CC BY license or equivalent. No embargo immediately available. The underlying data also has to be open and accessible. And the foundation will pay the reasonable fees to publish on the policy, in compliance with the policy. So this went into effect on January 1st, 2015. We are granting a 2-year transition period for policy compliance. We did that on purpose because we wanted to really dive into the implementation piece and really understand what compliance look like, monitoring, tracking, because at the end of the day, it's not about the policy, it's about the impact that we have. It's about looking at the body of research and seeing where it leads. So as of January 1st, 2017, all publications will be required to publish on our open access terms. So what do we know? We know that approximately 1,500 articles are published by our researchers every year. We anticipate that might be higher, but we don't know, and that's what we're going to find out, and that's very exciting. We know that our researchers publish in a variety of journals with a variety of publishers. So we have this policy, that's awesome. We're going to track our data, our compliancy, great. But how do you actually do it, right? We have a lot of conversations here about infrastructure. How are you going to manage it? What's going to happen? And it was very lofty. We were having these conversations. I was like, oh, how are we going to do this? This is insane. And we talked a lot, did a lot of research. It was awesome to have all of the learnings from what has been happening in the open access space. That really helped us kind of figure out where we wanted to go. So thank you. We have a small project team, a 2-year transition period, and we have conducted a lot of stakeholder engagements. And when we think about stakeholders, we think about our staff, the researcher, the grantee, or the institution, and the publishers as well. And we have 2 things that we want to do with our implementation. We want to optimize the research that we fund and the impact of it, and we want to minimize operational impact. And so how do you do that? Well, the immediate changes that we made were that as of January 1st, 2015, there was a non-negotiable open access clause added to all grant agreements. So if you sign an agreement with the foundation, this open access policy applies. And we also created a centralized budget to pay the open access fees. And the incentive to pay, it's been great because this is not retroactive, it's just moving forward. And so we have a lot of people who are finding us, a lot of researchers who are like, hey, I really want to publish on open access, can we do that? And yes, if you are compliant with the policy and it's before 2015, we will pay those fees. And it's a great way to kind of get people to come see you. So, but the longer term play, what is that? And it's called Chronos. That's what it is. It's a web-based platform that enables the Gates Foundation to track its peer-reviewed published research. And we've been working on this and doing a lot of stakeholder engagements, interviewing how can we leverage the processes that we have internally already? What can we do to make it easier? Because I think someone said today that we want to make it easier on the researcher. It has to be easier. No one's going to do it, right? So it doesn't matter. it has to be easy. And when we talk to people about it, our internal staff sometimes are like, are you sure we don't have to do this, this, and this? And I'm like, yes, I'm sure. And so it's really awesome to see that. What Chronos will do is it will connect and support all participants in complying with the Gates Foundation's open access policy, and it will deliver a seamless experience, which includes manuscript submission, payment management, data management, and reporting functions. So I get a lot of questions on, well, how are you going to track this, and what are you going to do? And I finally have an answer. This is how we're going to track. This is what we're going to be doing in the next year or so. So what are the benefits? You have to have that benefit piece. A, it's easy. It'll be simple. The Gates Foundation, we get a centralized process to report and measure our funded research. Amazing, right? We get to actually look at the literature and say, wow, this is where we see it. This ended up in a policy, or this ended up in, a lot of citations, and thinking about what that impact looks like and how we measure. And we can ensure compliance with minimal operation burden, because we really want our researchers and our grantees to focus on the research and not have to deal with process. We want them out there solving the problems that we want to solve. For the grantees and the researchers, the authors receive a clear guidance on how to comply with the policy, and individuals and institutions no longer are required to manage the APCs. So for the publishers now have a consistent way of receiving payment for articles funded by the Gates Foundation. We will enter into agreements with publishers to pay those APCs, so you'll be working directly with us. And what I want to do is I'm going to show you some slides from the UI design that we put together, and then I'll just run through them. So this is the researcher view. When a researcher is ready to publish, to submit the manuscript, they will be taken into Chronos, and they will be given a screen somewhat similar to this. We are going to build a new UI, so I'm not sure if it's going to look exactly like this, but it's all of our colors from our branding palette. So they'll enter their journal name to see if it's compliant, or do a subject search, and then they'll get a list of journals that are compliant or not compliant. They'll have the APCs listed, and a lot of information about the journal, and then they can decide which journal they're going to submit to. When we think about the admin view, we get a bird's eye view into all the publishing that's happening, because right now we don't know. It's embedded in the grants. The budget's embedded in the grants. We don't really have a system of measuring how much we're spending on publishing, so it'll enable us to do that. It'll enable us to see who's published where, which is going to be great. And then we'll do compliancy checks before the invoice is paid. So we'll be able to make sure that compliancy is met. And here's another view of the admin. And we'll also have reporting and tracking. And I will say that the grantees that we talk to, there are various different personas for this resource, for this platform. And there'll be you can have an institution account. So if you want to manage all of the Gates Foundation funding that's coming through, you can do it that way. A researcher can have their own. So next steps. So the anticipated launch date of Chronos is July 1st, 2016. We will have 6 months in which to see how it goes, right? January 1st, 2017. Is coming around the corner. It seems so far away when we made the announcement, but it's just right there. So July 1st, 2016, we will have continued stakeholder engagement. We will educate our staff, grantees, and researchers and publishers about our policy, and we will further discussions with the publishers that we've already had to how to integrate with Chronos. So that is the very tactical piece of the policy, right? It's like, how do we get it done, the compliancy, make it easy. But we're really thinking about the advocacy piece as well. So it's been really awesome listening to all the issues that are here that you guys are bringing up. And I want to encourage you to think about how you would change the world, right? And so you're here, you're innovation and collaboration and education. And I want to encourage you to think about, this isn't working, this is complex. How do we blow it up, and how do we change? And with that, I will leave you with my contact information. And if you have any questions, feel free to email me directly. If you can't remember it, open access is always really good. And the last thing that I'm going to say is the work is complicated, but why we do it is not. And I think it's really important to understand why we do what we do and the decisions that we make. It's because of the impact that we want to have. Thank you.